Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Sunday, August the 10th, 2025. And a little bit going on in the world of boxing in the last 24 hours. Last night we had the fight night up in Brisbane, Ace Boxing. We've got the big weekend, of course, coming up next weekend with a couple of Aussies in action, Sam Goodman, Andrew Maloney. So always plenty to talk about, as well as some other international news. Let's firstly start on this day. Back in, 1982, Puerto Rico's great Wilfredo Gomez knocked out Mexico's Roberto Robaldino in the 8th round to win the World 122-pound title in Puerto Rico. 1986, another Puerto Rican, Carlos de Leon, defended the World Cruiserweight title by knocking out Michael Greer. What else we got there? In 1985, and I actually mentioned him just a couple of days ago, another great Puerto Rican champion, Hector Macho Camacho, moved up to the lightweight division from 130 and beat Jose Luis Ramirez in Las Vegas for the world lightweight title. And I did mention the other day with Hector Macho Camacho that he had that, I think it was Rafael Bazooka Limon the other day that he beat on this day. That was his first scintillating performance to get sort of everyone noticing that he was a potential superstar. Well, if that didn't do it, well, this one did. He absolutely put Jose Luis Ramirez to the sword and made a very, very good fighter look pretty ordinary on the night. And what was the other thing that happened today? 1949, Ezard Charles retained the world heavyweight title with a knockout of Gus Lesvenich. I think that's how you pronounce it. 1949. So that's what happened on this day in boxing history. All right, let's get on to today's news, and we'll start with the Aussies. And it was interesting, there's obviously a big card next week, Sam Goodman and Nick Ball, and also the main event, Dillian Whyte against Moses Otama. Now, I just sort of read over the weekend that, you can probably see that the camp of Nick Ball aren't really rating Sam Goodman at all, because apparently they haven't even studied any tape of Sam Goodman. This is Nick Ball saying that anyway. So obviously I'm hoping that his trainers have studied Sam Goodman, but Nick Ball did an interview and said he hadn't watched any tape of Sam Goodman in training. So I don't know whether that's confidence, whether that's arrogance, whether it's stupidity. I don't know. But geez, I remember even at an amateur level, I used to watch tapes of opponents. So I don't understand that. Maybe, look, some fighters get a little bit superstitious about the whole thing and just really rely on their teams to do the work and put the game plan in place and they trust it. But geez, not to even watch. I'm sure he's seen Sam Goodman fight. Obviously, he's seen him fight before. Even just every sort of usual boxing fan has probably seen Sam fight. But to not study any tape and just get a little bit of a feel and sort of do some visualization of what it's going to be in there with Sam. As I said, he's either super confident or super arrogant or super stupid, one or the other. But yeah, it's a big opportunity for Sam. I think he can pull it off. I've been watching a little bit of Nick Ball over the last few days. Not all his fights, just a lot of highlights and clips and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's pretty time consuming to sit down and watch all these full fights. I think you get a bit of an indication of what these fighters are like, just or a bit of a reminder of what they're like by watching highlights and clips. But look, he's a tough little fighter. Just comes at you all day. He's a big, well, he's not big, but he's a solid 126 pounder. Sam Goodman coming up from 122. But by all accounts, Sam his natural weight is a lot higher than obviously the 122 to 126, and apparently he'll carry the weight really, really well. And there has been thoughts that he'd go up to 126 anyway. But the interesting thing on that card as well is that Buddy McGirt, the trainer of Dillian Whyte. Now, I'm assuming this can't be right. But anyway, I'm just going by what I read. A direct quote from Buddy McGirt, apparently too, by the way, in that he's never seen Moses Otama fight. Now, as I said, I just cannot believe that would be the case. But he said that he's never seen him fight. In the same interview, by the way, he said that Moses Otama was a good young up-and-coming prospect, but at the same time has never actually seen him fight. And I suppose his school of thought is that Dillian Whyte, such a experienced campaigner, been in there with the likes of Joshua Fury amongst others, and give him good fights. Never actually held a version of the title, Dillian Whyte, but he's fought for it a couple of times. But he's relying on Dillian Whyte's experience and ring IQ and just his overall knowledge, I suppose, and experience in the game to get over the top of Moses Otama, which is not a real clever plan, I don't think, going into a fight with a young tiger. Now, there's been all the comparisons to Mike Tyson and all that sort of stuff. I don't see it, if I'm being honest, but at the same time, you would think a due diligence of a trainer would be to at least watch the opponent. Same thing as Nick Ball. It's a little bit different with Nick Ball, of course, because at least his trainers, by the sounds of things, are doing some study on Sam. But when you've got the trainer of a fighter not watching tapes, it's a little bit odd. But look, you know, he's probably got a lot of faith in Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's probably, he's obviously would have seen Moses Otama fight before, and he's probably just thinks that he's got everything he needs to beat Moses Otama. But could be a strategy fraught with danger. Come here, man. So anyway, so that's next weekend. So looking forward to it. Actually, I don't think I'm going to watch it live. It's going to be on. I think it starts at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So some of these English cards do go quite long, so maybe we might get lucky, and if I get up at 6 o'clock or something, they might still have the co-main and main event still to come. So come here, man. We've got a dog there. Morning. Stay there, buddy. Was it last night too with the Ace Boxing now? Shannon O'Connell and Cooper O'Connell were on the card, as I touched on yesterday. As predicted, both fighters got the early knockouts. I think with Cooper, as I said, it was more so just about getting the experience and getting used to being a pro. So he stopped his opponent. I think he might have been, was he from Papua New Guinea or somewhere? I can't remember, but Cooper took care of him pretty early. And look, even though the opponent probably wasn't much or giving much in return, you could still see that Cooper O'Connell was going to be a very, very good young fighter. So it's just a matter at the moment of just keeping the body count sort of piling up, I suppose, and getting a bit of a name out there. And as I said, more importantly, getting used to being a pro, because there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people, you know, they think these young fighters turning pro need to step up straight away and fight good opposition and experienced opposition, and that'll come. But what you got to remember, you're going from the amateurs to the pros. You've got to get used to the different fight camp. So you're obviously training for a different amount of rounds, a different pace of the fight as well. You're using different gloves. Of course, there's the obvious things like, you know, going to the weigh-in and you know, the whole pro build-up and all the rest of it. It's just a different, well, it's a different sport. So I can see why when you've got an 18 or 19-year-old kid, you've just got to keep them coming along. It's a little bit like little Benji Birchall, who's over in Thailand, the son of David Birchall. He's only, was he 15 or 16 or something like that? He's over there now. He's, as from what I've heard, like he's knocking out a lot of, let's just say they're not exactly world-class fighters, but that's not the point. It's about getting him over there, getting rounds into him now, and getting some confidence into him, working on some different things. So by the time he turns 18, he'll be ready to launch his career with hopefully, you know, maybe 10 fights behind him or 12 fights behind him, and they can launch his career properly over here. So on the same card as well, Shannon O'Connell. Now, look, of course, the comments sort of come in the Facebook comment section, I suppose, and that's to be expected. I think Shannon's experienced enough to know the way it works. And look, I think Shannon will be the first one to admit that the opponent she had, again, wasn't exactly world class, but I'll probably go in defence of her. I know that I'm a friend of Shannon, so it probably seems like I'm being a little bit biased, but in this instance here, I know for a fact that she just could not get an opponent to fight her. She wanted the Jazzy Pars, she wanted Nick Johnson, she wants Sky Nicholson, she wants all the fighters. But unfortunately, if they don't want you, look, I can understand, obviously, Nick Johnson, although Shannon did beat her 3 or 4 years ago. But I can understand the Sky Nicholson and Shannon, the Nick Johnsons are sort of doing the thing at world level at the moment. But she did want the rematch with Jazzy Parr. For some reason, Jazzy Parr decided to fight what is she? Is she in, I think she might be from Singapore, actually, the opponent, or Indonesia, somewhere like that anyway. But it was literally take this fight or get no fights. And when you've been sitting on the shelf for so long, frustrated at not being able to get any fights, credit to the girl that stepped up to fight Shannon. And yeah, it was one-sided. It was a stoppage early, but as I said, it's not like Shannon deliberately went out of her way to fight her and avoided those other fighters. The ball's in the court of the fighters like Jazzy Parr and those types of girls. But as I said, I will defend Shannon on this occasion because she wants those fights. Just no one wants to fight her, so she decided to take this one and at least get a fight under her belt while she waits anyway. All right, we're going to step over here because we've got about 5 people coming with about 4 dogs. So anyway, it's good to see her back. She did look in pretty good condition. Actually, I didn't watch it live. I just watched the replay on Facebook a little bit later. Ace Boxing put it up, and it was a pretty powerful performance. I've got to say too, I don't think the referee was probably right on the job though. I think it was pretty clear that Shannon was clearly the superior fighter, and she hit her with a right hand and buckled the knees. She sort of staggered back to the corner. I reckon the referee should have probably stepped in right there and then. It was obvious that she wasn't going to come back from that. But the referee did allow Shannon to sort of unload on her for 3 or 4 seconds, which you don't like to see, especially with what happened in Japan. And you've probably all read about that. Well, what one tragedy has turned into 2 because we've had 2 deaths from the same card. And I'm just going to bring it up here. So in the one event, there was 2 deaths, 1 coma, and 3 hematomas. So that was, I'm just going to bring up, when was it? I had it all up here. Yeah, so it was on the August the 2nd card. And so the first fighter to unfortunately pass away was, where was it? Shigetoshi Katari died on Friday. And then yesterday, the Hiromasa Yurikawa also died from injuries sustained. So his fight was with another Japanese fighter, Yohei Sato. But to have 2 deaths on the same card as well as someone else in a coma, really tragic. Now, I didn't see the card. I haven't watched the fights. I would think that it would just be just one of those tragedies of just something that happens. Well, geez, I was going to say very rarely. It's like a once in a sort of 50-year sort of occasion. It might even be 100 years, I don't know. But I've never heard of that happening where you get 2 deaths plus someone in a coma plus all those other injuries on the same card. Now, look, the Japanese culture and, it's all about being warriors and stuff. But you still got to have the boxing regulations and all that sort of stuff. So I would back the Japanese boxing board here that it was just one of those things. I don't think they would be allowing fighters to take unnecessary punishment and proceed in the fight when they have had enough. I don't think that's the case. From all the fight cards I've seen over in Japan, they run them exactly the same way as any other fight card in Australia or America or England or wherever it might be. I just think it was just bad luck. But isn't it just a reminder of the sport that we all love? I think, I'm not quite sure of the second fighter that died, but the first one was only 28 years of age. And I probably just want people to probably think of that, of these sorts of things that happen when they get on social media and lay into fighters and tell them they're spuds and bums and, calling someone like a Tim Tszyu a quitter and all that sort of stuff. Just, this is a reminder of that. That this is a very dangerous sport. This is not a game of football, where they front up the next week and work on a few things during the week. This is the very dangerous business we're in. And to have 2 deaths on the same night or the same card sort of highlights that, doesn't it? But again, just before you call someone a quitter or a bum or a tomato can or wherever it might be, just think of the sacrifice that goes into it. And these guys literally and women literally put their lives on the line for our entertainment. I know they get well paid, but still, we just have to be mindful of that sometimes, just in my opinion anyway. All right, what else have we got happening? Are we there? Dmitry Bivol has, looks like he's been pulled out for the year. He's had a back operation. Apparently it's been in the works for about 10 years. He's been living with it. And it looks like he'll be out probably till the start of 2026. Best case will be the end of the year. You would think they would just wait till the start of 2026. It's not like he's got anything sort of big planned. Artur Beterbiev moved on with another opponent on the November card with David Benavides in Riyadh, so that's out of the equation. Canelo and Crawford won't fight before the end of the year. They're fighting in September, of course, so they won't fight before the end of the year. So it's probably not a bad thing to rest up and recuperate. I know he's getting on in years, but again, he's had such a huge amount of fights in the amateurs and pros. Such an experienced guy. I don't think it's going to be anything that will be detrimental to him and his career anyway. The interesting thing I did see, though, that really sparked my interest, though, is that Eddie Hearn has just for the first time floated that a move to cruiserweight could be on the cards, and he said he would love to make the Jai Pataia fight. So is this the very first little baby step towards maybe a Dimitri Bivol Jai Pataia fight? The fact that Eddie Hearn has actually mentioned the fight means they're obviously thinking about it. I mean, when you look at it, what else has Dimitri Bivol got at 175 apart from Benavides and Beterbiev? But they look like they want to fight each other. So Beterbiev, of course, wants the rematch with Bivol, but with everything going on, he's moved on. And then the fact that they're on the same card in November, this is Benavides and Beterbiev, it's always a tongue twister. You would think that if they're on the same card in November, that the course of action would be to put them together in the next fight after that. So for Bivol, you'd probably think it could be Canelo and Crawford. I don't think Crawford goes up. If he beats Canelo, he doesn't go to 175. That's just ridiculous. You would think that he'd probably just give Canelo a rematch, so that ties Canelo up for another sort of six to 8 months. So it does make sense. And as these fighters get older, they struggle to make the weight a little bit more. Jai Pataia's looking for a challenge. Geez, what a fight that would be. Just two southpaws, Bivol's a switch hitter, isn't he? But geez, just two brilliant fighters. And at 200, or the cruiserweight limit, I'll tell you what, I'll be backing our man Jai Pataia in that fight. I'm not sure Bivol will be able to go up and carry that extra 25 pounds. But geez, the fact that Eddie Hearn actually even broached it and brought it up, sort of got the blood pumping, I'd tell you, that would be an awesome fight for Jai Pataia. Another fight looks like it might be happening is Vergil Ortiz and Keith Thurman in, when was it? October. So Oscar De La Hoya said initially he said he was going to fight a top 5 154 pounder. But then the next day it was sort of leaked, hasn't been confirmed, but they're looking at Keith Thurman for October. And it's a tricky fight for Vergil Ortiz. It's a fight I think he wins, but it's a tricky fight for him. I know Keith Thurman looked like a superstar again against Brock Jarvis, but Vergil Ortiz is just a little different proposition than Brock Jarvis, I would probably think. So a good fight for Thurman. I think it's a good fight for both guys. Thurman represents a really good sort of comeback, well, when I say comeback opponent for Vergil Ortiz, he has had that injury that he was getting over. So I think it'd be good for him, and also I think it'd be good for Thurman. Roll the dice, have a crack, fight the arguably best 154 pounder out there, and if you win, you're right back in the mix of it all in these big paydays, and if you lose, well, again, no harm or nothing lost in that anyway. So that looks like October. Katie Taylor has been ordered by the WBC to fight Chantel Cameron. It looks like that will be her last fight. She hasn't actually agreed to it yet, but that looks like that will be her next fight. It's the only way she can retain the undisputed title. She fights Cameron. I think it makes sense for her. They're 1-1. It's the only fight she's lost. So, the only opponent she's lost to. So I think it makes sense. Excuse me. She wants to go out in style. I think it's a good fight for Katie Taylor to just get the upper hand on Chantel Cameron. Tough fight though. Chantel Cameron is a very, very good fighter, and she's obviously beaten Katie Taylor in the past. So I think if Katie Taylor wanted one more fight to go out with, I reckon that's a really good fight. Do it in Ireland. I think the first 2 fights might have been in Ireland as well, to be honest, but do it at Croke Park. Last fight, the farewell fight, a lot of pressure on it though, wouldn't there? Holy shit, 65,000 Irishmen or Irish women or whatever, all there to see Katie Taylor's last fight. But I think it'd be a good way for her to go out, fight the only fighter that you haven't got an advantage over, and it's a squared ledger at the moment. Get the win, go 2-1 up, and then retire. I think it's a good way to bow out. One last thing, seems to be a little love triangle going on at the moment between Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson and Richardson Hitchens. I like it. I think we can discard Ryan Garcia. I think he's going to be a 147 pounder. That's pretty obvious now. I don't think he can get down to 140. even though he said he would like to. But I really like that the fact that Stevenson, Lopez and Hitchens are all, well, it's the usual shit on social media and all that sort of stuff. But I think if they can actually get those fights sort of happening, wow, we are in for a couple of years of brilliant fights. I was so impressed with Shakur Stevenson against William Zepeda. First time I've seen him live when I saw him in New York. When he wants to be, he's a fantastic fighter. And I think if he brings what he did against Zepeda, I think he beats Hitchens and Lopez. I think he beats them both. That was such a great performance. On his day, Lopez is a great fighter as well. But if I had to pick a winner out of those three, they did have their little sort of trilogy amongst each other, I would be backing Shakur Stevenson. Very, very good fighter. So anyway, hopefully at least, in the end of the day, I don't really care who wins. I just want to see the fights because we need them and we're getting more and more of those quality fights. So let's keep them rolling into 2026. So guys, that's going to do it for today. Hope you enjoy your Sunday and we'll catch you tomorrow.